Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to see some of you. Recording per usual for those that can't join us live, but we are excited to welcome back Jamie. She's a repeat speaker, so we're really excited for that. Jamie, I did share your website on our event and everything, but if you want to give just a brief overview about yourself, and then we can dive into mobility, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A too. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me back. It was fun last year and it's good to be back with a new topic. Um, a little bit about me. I've been in the fitness field since about 2002, so quite a while. Focusing mainly on rehab in the beginning, so injury rehab, sports rehab, then switched over to focusing just strictly on fitness. I also work with athletes doing coaching as well, and now I kind of do a little bit of everything from the coaching to the strength to the rehab. It's all part of my lexicon. I also do bike fitting as well, so lots of stuff in the realm of fitness and health and cycling, running, swimming, all that kind of fun stuff. Um, and with all of that, mobility has kind of been one of those things that I've dove into probably the last 5 years because it just felt like something was missing from the rehab world, and that seemed to kind of fit the bill. And so I'm glad to be able to come here and talk to you all about that. I do have a slideshow presentation. It's pretty minimal. It's 9 slides. Am I able to share it, or I can just send it to you guys later on, however you want?
Yeah, you should be able to. I just gave the permissions.
Okay, awesome. Let me see if I do this correctly. And let's see if I can get it. Okay, well, that's a start. There it is. How do I share it? There we go. Ah, all right.
Perfect.
I've already introduced myself, so we have that, and we're going to be talking about mobility specifically for cyclists, since this is a group of cyclists. And um, there we go. Like I said, my background is in fitness and rehab, and most recently mobility. And I just kind of want to start off with when I say mobility, what does that mean to you guys? It's not forwarding. I don't know if I'm doing the wrong thing here. There we go. Go ahead and shout it out or put it in the chat.
I think
Okay.
of like flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have anything they want to add to that? Okay, that's
Like
all right. Yep,
just
someone
being
can.
able to move, just be able to move your joints in different directions, I guess, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think of those like smaller muscle groups and things like that that maybe we don't always target but are so important in like making sure we don't have back pain.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we're probably all really familiar with flexibility where we'll use the hamstring, for example. You're lying on your back, you got a strap around your foot, and you use that strap to pull your leg up and stretch the hamstring. That's flexibility. That's pulling a joint or pulling a muscle into its stretched position, but that's not actually mobility. Mobility, it's down here in the corner, is being able to move a joint through its range of motion with strength and control. So what that means is in the example of a hamstring, being able to lie down on your back and lift that leg to a point where you feel a stretch in the hamstring without having to use something to pull your foot. So that means that so on the opposite side of the hip, or sorry, on the opposite side of the hamstring is your hip flexor. So that means that your hip flexor is strong in that end range of motion, and that your hip joint has good mobility moving into hip flexion, essentially is what that means. So it's being able to actively move yourself into ranges of motion with control. So that kind of neurologic component, being able to control it, but also strength. So hold it there and hold it against some sort of external resistance. So a lot of times we get injured because we get a body part gets pulled into a range of motion that we haven't really worked, and it gets pulled there either pretty quickly or with a lot of force or whatever it is, and that's how that injury occurs, is because we're not used to being in that position. We haven't trained it through actively moving to that position and moving there with resistance. And so to decrease, and this, it's not going to get rid of all injuries because there's always going to be something that could happen, but significantly decreasing your chance of injury by working on mobility stuff. Excuse me, I had a kitten sleeping on my lap and she just fell off. I'm going to put her outside. Say goodbye, everybody. Apologies for that. That was good mobility on her part. She caught herself, and I don't think she's hurt. So, let's see where I my notes here. So, so I mentioned that mobility is your ability to actively control your joints through a range of motion, and doing that with strength and control at those edges of the range of motion. So not just doing a small range, but getting that joint as close to its fullest range of motion as possible. And you don't necessarily have to always push it to the limits, but at least for what you're doing. So in the case of cycling, making sure that you have good hip flexibility, you've got good spinal flexibility and flexion and extension, good joint and ankle and knee mobility, and pretty good shoulder and neck mobility. Pretty much we're talking about the whole body here. So those things really come in handy when you're hanging out on that bike for long periods of time in that one position, to make sure that you can support yourself and that you're not going to get injured in that position. Let me see here, kind of toggling back and forth to get this to go to the next one. There we go. So when I work with my mobility, the practice that I came from is called functional range conditioning, or FRC for short. Some of you may have come across that, looking up different mobility things. The biggest one that you'll come across is something called the hip 90-90. Many of you may have already seen that or heard of it. It's one way of working mobility specifically for the hip. And what they talk about in FRC is, one, we're working mobility, which is your range of motion. So we're trying to expand your joint range of motion. That's the first part of it. And then once you've expanded your joint range of motion, then you start to work on strength of the joint. So not just stretching it, but actually building strength by holding a weight, resisting with the band, using your own body strength to resist against moving in one direction. Isometric contractions, things like that. And then by doing this over and over again, just like anything where we go cycling over and over again to build strength, we do to build our endurance. Do we do strength training to build our muscle strength? Same thing with joint mobility, is the more that you do it, the more neurologic connection that you're going to create and the better ability to control all of that. So the doing this practice over and over again strengthens that nervous system, and your nervous system is basically what helps you control and manage all the movements. Again, we're talking about joints, not just specific muscles. We're talking about diving even deeper from, oh, my hamstring is tight, to what is the hamstring connected to? Let's work on those joints. So in the instance of a hamstring, it's connected to both your hip joint and your knee joint. So working the ranges of motion in both of those two joints will help benefit the hamstring along. So I think, is that, okay, so one more here. So when it comes to mobility, the nice thing about mobility is that it's pretty easy to do. It doesn't generally take too long, and you get a lot of benefits from it. You get your joint health improves. A lot of people are like, yeah, I get these achy joints and yeah, I've been stretching my muscles, but the joint never really feels better. Doing this stuff because you're focused on the joint itself. Doing these motions help to improve the joint capsules, the joint spaces, and improve your joint longevity, just meaning it's going to be healthier for longer, so you can ride longer. Um, because it helps with that joint longevity, it's obviously going to reduce your chances of injury. It's not going to completely reduce your chance of injury. It just, sorry, everyone's always going to get injured in doing something. It helps reduce your chance of injury because you're able to move safer and stronger and with better control. And because of all that better control, generally most people also notice that they have a better awareness just of their body in general because they've been doing all these different joint motions. And with that, they feel that they've got better coordination. They're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling like I'm able to control my hips better. I noticed my power went up on the bike just because I have that connection with my brain and my body now. Or maybe it was they were really rounded in the back and now they're able to maintain a more straight spine, and that helped them get better power because now they're not kind of sitting in a bad position. Whatever it is, all these things are really great benefits actually and side effects of doing this. A lot of it is it's hard to explain. So what I thought I would do is make this a little bit more interactive. And just a quick review actually before we go to the interactive part is just again kind of comparing the mobility to the flexibility. So with mobility, the way that we do it is through controlled joint articulations, which articulation just means moving the joint through its range of motion. And most joints have some sort of rotation aspect to it. And so most joints are going to be doing circular type motions. We focus on end range strength. So once you get that joint into a nice full range of motion, then you start to add that strength component because it's the other part of this is taking it slow and mindful. So you're getting a lot of connection with your body. And because of what we're doing, you can see how the movements can kind of transfer over to everyday things, whether it's cycling, running, reaching into a cupboard, whatever it is. When we look at flexibility, it's more passive. So like I would use the example of the hamstring stretch. You lie down, you grab a strap, you pull your leg, you hold it. There's no neurologic connection with that. It's just I'm stretching the hamstring and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to loosen the hamstring to be able to, let's say you want to go do some running, you want those hamstrings to be loose, but over time they tend to kind of shorten back up, get tight again. And if you haven't controlled the hips, the joints on the other side of it, then you're just not going to have as good a control over all of it. And that goes into the next one where there's not a strength or control component to stretching. And with stretching, it doesn't generally include moving through different ranges of motion like mobility does. And obviously, like I said, it doesn't focus on your joints. So that's kind of the basic differences. And I'm not, like I said, flexibility is not bad. It's still needed, doing that passive stretching, but also doing the active stuff is really helpful in making bigger gains and more long-term gains. So that being said, I believe we're going to go ahead and stand up and do some of this stuff. So I thought I would go through the four big ones, which are hips, ankles, spine, and shoulders. These four parts of the body are really important in being able to cycle. Ankles and hips because you're constantly pushing and pulling on the pedals, spine because that connects your saddle to your bars, and shoulders, that's what's supporting you on the handlebars. And the spine actually includes the neck, so it kind of gets almost everything. So I'm going to actually exit out of this so I can see everybody. And how do I do that? How do I exit out? Oh, stop the share. Huh, look at that. Did I do it right? Yes, I did. All right. You don't have to turn your video on, but if you want to, then I can give you a little bit of feedback. But we're going to start with the ankles, and I'm going to move my computer to a place where I can sit down on the ground. So if you have a spot where you can go ahead and sit down, let's go ahead and do that. Yeah. Oh, I'm too close now, I can't see. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So for our ankles, it's best to do it without shoes. That way your whole foot has a chance to do all the motions that it needs to do. And what we're gonna do for the ankles is I like to sit in this kind of half cross-legged position. So one leg is crossed, the other leg is in front. It just allows me to sit upright without feeling anything stretching or being too tight. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're actually gonna get our foot off the ground. And to do it, we're gonna use our arms just to lift the leg up. So I stick one hand under my leg, I grab that bicep, grab my other arm bicep, and then just lean back. Now my leg is up off the ground, so turn sideways. You can see that my foot's up off the ground. I'm wearing way too much black. I hope you guys can see my foot. You know what? I'll get that out of the way. That'll help a little bit. Okay, there we go. So what you want to do is our ankle actually has a lot of motion, but most of the time when we think about the motion, we think about flexion, which is toes up, and extension, which is toes down. Those are two big motions that we need for cycling, but it also tilts in, it tilts out, and it can create these big, huge, gigantic circles. So what we're going to do is we're going to move slowly and with control in as big a circle as you possibly can. But one caveat is you never want to move into pain. So if you're moving through a range and you're like, oh, that feels kind of painful, back off a little bit and see if there's a way that you can pass through that direction without pushing into pain. Right? So we'll start with the first one, which is, it might be easier if I take that off so you can see my foot better. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start by lift the toes up, pull the foot up towards you as far as you can. I'm going to start by using the inside of my ankle to pull the foot across. And now from there, I'm going to use the back of the ankle to pull the foot down while I'm still holding it across, because remember, we're trying to make a big, huge circle. Once I can't get down any lower, now I'm going to use the outside of the ankle, keep the toes pointed as I pull it across as far as it can go. And it's not going to go super far in this direction. That's normal. And then once you get there, you're now going to start to pull the toes up, still try to keep pulling it off to that side. And then you're going to finish by bringing it all the way back into the center, toes up, foot up. Now, if you're like me, some of you probably felt a little bit of a cramp down in this position. What that cramp is it's actually your body trying to figure out where it needs to go. There's signals being sent from the brain. You may not have spent a whole lot of time in that position over there or wherever it was. And so your body's sending these, either it's sending too much signal or it's not sending enough and you get a little cramp. Cramps are okay. That means that you're working something, you're making connection. Just like with pain, back off just a little bit so that you don't get that cramp as much and then keep going. So let's go ahead and do 2 times in one direction and then 2 times in the other direction. So again, it's toes are up. You're going to start by bringing the foot in, keep the toes up, and then you're going to start to push those toes down while your foot is in. And then using the outside of the foot, pull the toes across the bottom, try to be careful with that crampy space. And now you're going to lift the toes up, bring the foot up and in, and keep going one more time. Bring it across, go as far across as you can, and then toes down, foot down, bring it across the bottom, lift those toes up, pull the foot up, bring it across. And now we're going to reverse that motion. So again, we're learning how to control the whole joint and the whole range of motion. So we have to go the other direction too. Starting with those toes up, foot up, you're going to try to turn the foot out to the side once you can't go any farther. And you're going to point those toes down, point the foot down, and then bring the foot across and in. Once you can't go any farther across, you'll lift those toes up, pull the foot up, bring it back into the center, and then keep going around one more time. So it's out, toes down, foot down, bring it across the bottom, toes up, foot up, back into the center, and relax. And if you're doing that with enough energy, you should feel a little tired on the outside of the ankle and feel those spots where you're actually working the ligaments and the tendons and all that kind of stuff. When you're doing it, you may get some pops and cracks. That's just things kind of working the way out. Sometimes what you'll have happen too is you'll try to go across a spot and your foot will just jump. And that's that disconnection. You probably haven't spent any time in that position, and your brain doesn't know how to get you there. So it just skips past it to the next connection that it knows to make. And so every time that you practice through there, that jump will probably get a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller until finally you can actually make that circle without that jump anymore. Then that's the first bit of it. The other part that I forgot to mention, but you probably have noticed as you're doing it, is the focus is just on the ankle, and you can very easily kind of move the leg to create motion. We don't want to move the leg. The focus is just on that ankle. So you want to keep that leg as still as possible. And in the beginning, when I was doing this, I was cheating with my leg. So I actually grabbed my shin with my hand so I couldn't move it. That way I did just completely focus on that ankle. So then once we get the ankle moving, usually for some people it's a couple weeks, some people it's a couple months, some people it's 6 months or so, when you finally feel like you've got full control of that motion, then the way that you start to add the strength component to it is first you're just resisting yourself. And what I mean by that is you're trying to go into a range of motion, but you're also trying to pull yourself out of that range of motion at the same time. So the motion slows down even more. Right now, I'm trying to pull my foot in this way, but I'm also at the same time pulling it that way. It's kind of like an isometric contraction, but you're very slowly letting yourself win as you're coming around that circle. And what that's doing is that's giving you that strength, that resistance feedback at those, what I talked about before, end ranges of motion that we don't normally get when we think about just doing an ankle stretch here, ankle stretch there, ankle stretch there, and done. So now what you've done is you've created more range of motion. Your brain is connected with your ankle. Then you add that strength component to it by resisting against yourself. Now you've got an ankle that functions better. You've got an ankle that's got a little bit of strength, and then you can start doing a lot of other type of strength stuff with it. And if you watch any of the FRC stuff, a lot of people will do these strength things with the ankle where they'll stand on the side of the foot, putting more and more weight in it. And so you basically can stand in a position where it looks like the same position you would get an ankle spring from. And they can stand on that because they've built up the strength and the brain body connection to do it. Not saying that you have to get yourself there, but for certain people like wrestlers, gymnasts, things like that, that's actually a really helpful thing for them to do. For a cyclist, you probably don't need that type of stuff, but for a cyclist, for ankle at least, being really strong in a good ankle flexion here. So doing strength stuff from a nice low position, and you can do it here by, I'm using my body weight to resist against me, going into what's called plantar flexion, and then slowly letting myself back down. It's basically like a heel raise, but again, doing it more isometric contraction type stuff. Anybody have any questions on the ankle motion? That's our first one. Awesome. The knee, it's a little different because it's one of the few joints where rotation doesn't actually happen first, but it does happen as part of the joint. So the knee joint is almost a true, what's called a hinge joint, meaning it just opens and closes, but there is still some rotation to it. And I'm going to take you through the rotation part because most fitness people don't talk about the rotation aspect of the knee. And as you flex and extend, the knee does have to do a little bit of rotation in order for that to happen. So I should have worn shorts so you can see this, but it's a similar position. So you're kind of sitting cross-legged. And with this one, I keep my heel on the ground and I stabilize the side of my upper thigh. And that just prevents me from being able to move my leg so that I can just move my lower leg. Now, that little bump on the front of your knee, what you want to do is you want to watch that bump. And as you do this motion, the rotation, you should see that bump rotate in. It's not going to rotate in very far, but it will rotate in. And then you should see it rotate out. And that one, you'll get a lot more movement. So if you hold that end of your thigh and you keep your heel on the ground and you try to move just your lower leg, this is my lower leg rotating in. Here's my bump over here. And now rotating out, here's my bump over here. You should be able to get a little bit of motion. And what's happening with that is your hamstrings are controlling that motion. So your lateral hamstring pulls and turns the leg up, and then your medial hamstring pulls and turns the leg in. And those two working together at the same time is what causes flexion. And one of them working, whether it's the inside one or the outside one, pulls you into flexion with a bias of your foot, either pointed in or pointed out. All right, so let's go ahead and give that one a try. Heel stays on the ground, thigh is held in place, and then you're trying to rotate your entire lower leg without getting that upper leg to move. And it might be really tiny, might just be a teeny tiny little nudge from one direction to the other. That's okay, that's your starting point. With this one, you want to rock it to one side, and then once you get to your end point where it feels tight, you want to try to use those muscles to pull it a little farther, and then you can bring it over to the other side. Once you get to your end point, use the muscles on the other side to try to pull it a little farther. You may not actually make any movement, but what you're doing is we kind of jumped ahead a little bit and you're strengthening those muscles in your current end range of motion. So as the range of motion does get bigger, you'll have strength just at those edges of your range of motion. And that's how you get that range, both in the rotation and then a little bit of strength by pulling a little farther and hold it, and then rotate and pull a little farther and hold it. And then if you want it, once you get to the point where that feels easy and you want to add more, then you would attach something to your foot, like an external, like a band or a cable or something, and use that to create that resistance to your rotation. All right, needs a little bit easier one when it comes to rotation. Then when we look at the knee as a whole, when it comes to its flexion and extension, the rotation happens as we flex and extend. So as we, let's see which way does it go. So as you extend, there's going to be a little bit of an outward rotation. And then as you flex, there's going to be a little bit of an inward rotation. So I'm exaggerating it, but outward rotation on the extension, inward rotation on the flexion. And because that's what the range of motion is for the knee, that's the motion that you want to do as you kind of lean back and go into extension of the knee and flexion of the knee. Turn to the side, rotate out, extension of the knee, rotate in, flexion of the knee. Usually I get a little bit more support. Extend and flex, rotate, extend, and flex. There you go. And with this one, if you really want to work it even harder, you can not hold on to it, lean back, make sure you get a good back posture, and get a full extension of the leg and then a full flexion of the leg on that. With that one, the way that you would add the strength, obviously, is by resisting. So again, doing that kind of isometric contraction where you're slowly letting yourself win all the way out, and then the same thing all the way back. Once you feel like you've got that and you want to take that to the next level, best way to add external resistance to that would be, well, of course I'm not sitting here right now, ankle weights. Create a little bit of extension, a little bit of resistance at the end of your range of motion, because we're talking about knee for that. So it's not just going to engage the quads, which is what we want for our cycling, but it's going to get the quads, the hamstrings, and all those tiny little things in there that help the knee rotate. Because as you are pedaling, just like I said, when we're extending and flexing the leg, that lower leg is doing this the whole time. And if it's not able to do it well and you're cycling, 2 or 3 hours, that's thousands of pedal strokes per hour. That's a lot of time that knee is getting yanked around and it's probably not happy. So making sure that you've got some good range of motion, rotation of your knee is going to make that knee feel a whole lot happier. All right, so we did the ankles and knees, which is kind of the easier ones of the ones that we're going to do. So the next one is the hip. It's pretty complicated because the hip is a super free joint. It's definitely the biggest rotational joint that we have. And so it requires a lot of movement. I'm going to show you the movement from what's called quadruped. So you're on your hands and knees. You can do it standing. You can do it on your side. The other part of this that I actually should have said in the beginning is that with mobility, you're working against gravity. So when you don't have any external resistance, and you're doing just the range of motion stuff, whatever direction gravity is pulling you in, that's the side that you're going to be getting the most work. So it's kind of hard to show you for the ankle and the knee because it's pretty simple to be able to do those. But for the hip, you'll see why in a minute. So I'll show you the 3 different positions that I'll do it from. But the easiest position to do the hip is actually on your hands and knees. So I'll show you the entire motion from the front and from the side because it's kind of complicated. And then I'll talk you through it as we try to start to do the motion. So with our hip, there is flexion. So when we're moving the hip, we want to just focus on moving the hip. And it's very easy to start rotating the spine or flexing the spine or whatever. Avoid the temptation to make the range of motion bigger just because your spine can move, and only move what the hip can do. So first thing is hip flexion. So bringing the knee towards the chest. I can go farther, but that means I'm using my back. I'm not actually using my hip. That's not hip anymore. That for me is my hip flexion in this position. So that's the first thing that you do. Then, and I'll show you this from the side in a moment. The next motion is bringing the knee out to the side. I call this one the dog at the fire hydrant. From there, the next motion is that big rotation of the hip. So for me, that's about as much rotation as I can get before I start to use my back. My knee comes up, my foot goes down. And then from there, oops, I'm sorry, out to the side, I went the wrong direction. Out to the side, my knee goes down, foot comes up, and then I'm gonna lift that leg up. So I'm going into hip extension. So I'm squeezing my glute. I can't lift it any higher. Now I'm gonna bring that leg into the center line of my body and bring it back down even to my other leg. That's half the movement. The other half is reversing it. So then I'm going to kick it back. I'm going to push it out to the side. I'm going to undo the rotation, bring it back towards my elbow and down. All of that, if you notice, I didn't move my back at all. It was all just coming from the hip. From the front, so that you can see that motion. The knee comes forward, out to the side. This is the fire hydrant, dog at the fire hydrant. Then I rotate my knee down. My foot goes up. As you can see, I don't have a lot of motion in that position. Then I start to lift it up, bring it back in line with the body, and then bring it back down underneath to the start position, and then reverse. So leg comes up, out, undo that rotation, bring the knee forward and down. All right, now that I talked you through all of it, let's go ahead and give it a try. I'll come back to the side position. So starting first with knee flexion, bring your knee up towards your elbow without moving your back. And then from there, leg comes straight out to the side. And then you're going to try to rotate your knee down as you rotate your foot up without lifting your back. And now use your glute to lift that leg up, keeping your knee bent as high as you can go. At the same time you're lifting it up, you're bringing it in towards the center line of your body. Once you're at the center line, then you're just going to drop it down to your other knee. And then reverse. You're going to squeeze that glute to pull that leg straight up behind you. Then you're going to push that knee out to the side. Oops, I'm cheating with my back. And then unrotate. Bring that knee forward towards your elbow. Set it down. And if you have to shake out the wrists, go ahead and do that. I know this one tends to hit the wrist. So that is using gravity. Gravity's pushing down on the back of me. So pretty much the back of the hip is working against gravity for this motion. If we change our position, we lay it on our side. Now, as I'm doing that motion, I would come up, come out to the side, I rotate across, down and in, same thing, but now I'm feeling the work happening on the outside of the hip a little bit more. The other way that you can change it is doing this motion standing up. You only get about half, you don't have to get this very high. If I stand up to do the same motion, now I'm going to get the majority of the resistance in the front of the hip and in the rotation. So I'm still doing the same exercise, but the point of the range where you're feeling like you're working the most is the part that's being pulled against by gravity. And that's just for when you're just doing the mobility stuff without any resistance to it, just the mobility. And I didn't mention it in there, but the mobility part is, when you look up online, you'll see it's called CARS. I know a lot of acronyms. It stands for controlled articular rotations. That's that first step of getting the mobility, is just getting control of your range of motion through these things, which are called CARS. So let's try this one on your other leg. Let's try it on your side. So you get a feel for what it feels like with gravity pulling against the side of your hip. So for this one on the side, you're going to want your bottom leg straight. Top leg is just going to be stacked on that bottom leg. first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna bring your knee towards your shoulders. Just like with the other ones, you want to keep your back straight. So I can bring my knee higher, but again, I'm flexing at my spine. That's not what we want. We just want it to come from the hip. Then once you can't go any farther, bring the knee towards your shoulder. You're going to bring that knee straight up towards the ceiling and let your foot just kind of drop. That's fine. Now you're going to create that rotation. So you're going to try to rotate the knee down as you rotate your foot up. And this is where you're really going to feel it in that lateral part of the hip. Then from here, you're gonna bring that leg back behind you. I would suggest reaching those arms forward, otherwise you're gonna tilt backwards. Once it's behind you, bring that leg down. And for a lot of people right here, they feel a lot of tightness. And it's usually because that quad is really tight and we don't have a lot of stability from here. That's normal. Just make sure that you engage through your core and reach those arms forward so you don't tilt backwards. Then you're gonna reach backwards with that leg, lift that knee up as high as it'll go. Let that rotation happen. Let that knee come back down towards the ground. Straighten it out. And that's one rep on that side. So we'll do one more rep on this and then we'll move on. So again, it's knee up towards your shoulders, only as high as the hip will let you go. Lift that knee towards the ceiling. Then you're going to drop the knee as you try to rotate the foot up. Once you can't go any farther, you're going to reach that leg back behind you as far as you can go. And then bring it back down to center line. And reverse, bring leg back behind you, lift that knee up, let the foot rotate forward, knee comes back up, and you're gonna drop that whole leg back down towards the ground, and straighten it out. So you should have noticed lying on the side, you feeling like you're working a little bit more on that lateral hip. When we were face down, you should have felt like you were working a little bit more on that posterior part of the hip. So that's how you change up the line of pull for all these different mobility stuff. Not so much with the ankle and knee, but with the back, the hip, and the shoulders. All right, so that's 3. We got 2 more to go. We got spine and we have shoulders. And so for the spine, I'm actually going to switch it off so you can see my back. Otherwise, you'll be like, "What are you doing?" Our spine consists of our lumbar spine, our thoracic spine, and our cervical spine. And most people think of spine as doing this motion, cat, cow, where you just kind of move it up and down together. And that's fine, but you've got 5 vertebrae at the bottom, you got 12 in the middle, and you have 7 at the top, and they can all move independently of one another. And so what this does is it teaches you to separate those out so that when you're on the bike, you're not always riding like this and don't know how to get out of it. You can control, I gotta get that middle thoracic up. There we go. And now I can hang out. I know that was more Superman position. We're usually here. Don't mind my Superman position. So I'm gonna go back to that quadruped. So hands and knees. And I always like to start from the bottom of the spine. It's just easier, I find. So if you find your lowest little vertebrae down at the very bottom of your spine, we're gonna go into extension, which is bringing your torso closer to the ground. So you want to start with that very first vertebrae that you can find, and you're going to try to move just that one. So you want to squeeze it right there, and then find the next one and squeeze that, and the next one and squeeze that. And right now, I don't feel like I'm doing anything with the upper back. I shouldn't feel like I'm trying to squeeze there yet. It's just down here. And then I'm going to squeeze the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, and keep on going until you get all the way to about kind of between the shoulder blades. At that point, you're going to start to feel a little tension in your neck. So you're going to want to start to lift your head and then finish with lifting your chin. When you get into your most extended position, you should feel kind of getting a stretch in your abdominals, and you should feel nice and tight through your entire spine from the base of your head all the way down to the bottom of your spine. And then from there, you're going to hold that position, keep your head high, come back down to that very bottom one, and you're going to let it go into flexion. So you're going to let that first one go, and then the next one go, and the next one, and the next one, working it all the way up until, again, you get roughly to the shoulder blades, and then you're going to start to let the head down, keep on rolling through the shoulder blades, keep going, and then you'll finish by tucking the chin in, and when you finish, you should feel like you're using your abdominals now, and that you feel a nice big stretch along your spine. And then let's try that again. So starting at the bottom, one at a time, see if you can go into extension. Working away from the bottom into the middle. Lifting the head as you come up to the upper, finishing with the head up, chin up. And that was actually a little bit on the fast side, so we'll do this next part slow. Going back into flexion, keep the head up, start at the very bottom of the spine, rolling into flexion, one vertebrae at a time, as best you can. Should be about kind of mid-thoracic by now. About at the shoulder blades now. Go ahead and let your head drop. Tuck your chin. And finish. So that was one time into flexion. We'll do one more into extension, going nice and slow. So I'm going to start at the bottom of the spine first. Find that first one. And the second one. Working you up nice and slow. Just beginning into the thoracic spine now. And just getting to the shoulder blades. And now you're going to start to lift the head. Finish by lifting the head and lifting the chin. And then feeling all those muscles you get along the spine. Nice and tight. And relax. So the other thing that when you do these is you'll find you can only do a couple of reps and you get tired. That's good. That means that you're working the way that you're supposed to be. If you just do a couple of these like this and you sit back and you're like, heart rate's still 40, you didn't do it right. You got to keep it nice and slow, and you got to really control, move slow, get a lot of muscle contraction so that you're getting that connection with your brain and your body, so that you're making sure everything's moving. So that's the spine, and that's going to help you with that kind of position on the bike. And then the last one that I wanted to go over, before I go over, so adding resistance to the spine is a little bit more difficult just because there aren't really machines that are set up to do that. So a lot of the spinal stuff comes from your own isometric contractions, but also, of course, I don't have my weighted balls in here, using med balls. A lot of times I will do some resisted stuff from kneeling. I'll have like a weighted med ball, like this, and I'll kind of round my back around it. So I'm not really getting resistance here, but now to lift it back up as I'm working, I'm getting resistance in this motion. So you're still getting a little bit of that isometric contraction plus external weight to help you build the strength on it. But generally it takes a while of really just kind of working that range, getting connected with your back before you get to that point where you want to start adding external weight. Okay, last one, probably the second most difficult one is the shoulder. It's very similar to the hip in that there's a lot of range of motion. I'll show you from the front and from the side, and then we'll do it together. And I'll do it kneeling. You can do it kneeling, you can do it standing. The shoulder, the thing that makes shoulder difficult is we have the shoulder joint, which does this stuff here, and then we have the shoulder blade, which does all this stuff here. So we want to separate those two when we're doing this exercise and just focus on what the shoulder can do. So a lot of times with this exercise, to make the range of motion bigger, people will let their shoulder blade go. You don't want to do that. You want to keep that shoulder blade tucked up against the back of your rib cage, like you're trying to squeeze it against the back of your rib cage, and then just let the shoulder joint itself do the movement. So the way that this movement goes is you start with your arm nice and straight, and the hard part is keeping that arm straight, because the tendency is we want to bend the elbow. Keep it nice and straight, and you're going to start with your palm up, and you're going to move your arm across your body. And everyone has a different range of motion with this. Whatever your range is that you can go across your body, you want to start with your hand low. Once you can't go any farther across the body, then you're going to start the movement coming back the other way. But first, you want to lift the arm up as high as you can go. Remember, don't let that shoulder blade come up, just what the shoulder joint itself can do. Once you can't go up any higher, let it keep coming back out across the body. Keep that palm up, and I'm reaching out to the side and behind me as far as I can go. There's usually a point for everyone where you get kind of stuck and you can't go any farther. Then at this point, right in that shoulder joint, I'm going to rotate my shoulder joint. You can see that my arm rotates, and I continue rotating. I'm able to get about my palm back up again. At this point, all of a sudden I can keep reaching that arm behind me, and then I'm going to finish down at my side. My palm is actually away from me, so I'm completely rotated in. And the reverse motion is bringing it back up with that palm rotated out. And again, you get to a point where you're stuck. Then you're going to rotate that arm all the way in the opposite direction. Try to bring that palm back up. And then you bring that arm up, across. It's naturally going to start to kind of come back down. That's perfectly fine. And then let it come back and finish at the front of the hip. So I'll show you that from the side. So I come across the body. I'm trying to keep my shoulder blade as attached to the back as possible. Then I start to bring it up. I bring it out to the side as far as I can. I can't really get back behind me any farther at this point. So now I'm going to rotate that arm, that shoulder forward, and keep rotating as far as you can. And now that allows me, I can reach back, and it's naturally going to want to come down. So just let it come down and then finish with it at the hip, and my palm is away. Then from there, check and make sure, did I lift that shoulder up? Did I pull it down? Did I push forward back? Keep it in its neutral position. And then you're going to bring that hand back up behind you until you can't go any higher. Untwist that shoulder and then let it come all the way back up, around, across the body and down. That is the motion for the shoulder. And just like with the hip, doing it in this direction, mainly the top of the shoulder is going to be getting that work against gravity. If you go lie on the side, the lateral part of the shoulder is going to get work against gravity. If you go from this position, the back of the shoulder is going to be doing the most of the work against gravity. So that's the way that you can kind of change the input. So let's go ahead and have everyone try it on your other side if you are already trying it. So elbow straight, palm away, sitting up nice and tall, and then keep that shoulder blade down. You're going to bring your arm across your body. You're going to bring it up. And then you're gonna let it come back out to the side. Keep going, keeping that hand as high as you can and reaching back as far as you can. Once you get to the point where it's kind of stuck and it won't go any farther, rotate it in and just keep rotating it in until you can't go any farther. And then you're gonna reach behind you and let it naturally come down, finishing at your hip, palms away. And then you're gonna lift that arm back up behind you once you can't go any higher. You're gonna unrotate it and try to get your palm back up. And then finish by bringing that arm up, back across the body. It'll naturally want to come back down and then finish in front of the hip and relax. And if you're doing that with a little bit of resistance, like I just was, you should feel just a little bit out of breath. That's good. That's what you want. So the first step when you're doing all of these is to just do them with minimal resistance, just trying to feel into how much range do you have. And compare that each time that you do it. So if you're doing this 3 or 4 times a week, each time you do it, check in. Oh, how's it feeling today? Is it feeling a little looser? Is it feeling tighter? Do I have a point in that range where all of a sudden something's pinchy or tweaky? You want to pay attention to that because that's your body's telling you something. So remember that. And let's say later in the day, you have to reach for something in the cupboard. Reach slowly because that could be the thing that's telling you something's about to go. So just be real careful with that. And that's the nice thing about this is it's both working on improving your range of motion, but it's also working on giving you a little bit of insight onto where your body is and what's going on with your body. And it actually, especially for women over 40, I had this happen to me last year. One day I woke up and I couldn't do it. Like I was doing this, I had frozen shoulder out of nowhere. Just no pre-warning signs. I literally was like this. That was all I could do. And so for the last year, I've been working on these, and actually this is pretty darn good. Today's probably a really good day. But doing these type of motions can also kind of help bring you back from injuries as well. So they're both to improve range of motion, to improve strength and control, and also as rehabilitative type stuff. Let's see, for adding resistance, obviously we go from just doing that range of motion to doing your resisted range of motion. So I'm trying to move, but I'm also trying to resist myself in doing it. And then obviously putting weight in your hand or wrist weight to add that external resistance to the motions as well. And that's how you would build those up. Let's see if I touched on all the points that I wanted to make with those. I think I did. Anybody have any questions on the ones that I did? Any questions that like came up as you were doing it? Did anybody have any, I should have asked this while we were doing it. Did anybody have any pain while they were doing that? Any of those?
The shoulder one's a little bit, not like terrible pain, but like you can tell it's tight.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of shoulder stuff aside from just the cycling support? No.
No, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's your body saying, hey, I need a little bit of attention.
Hmm.
With all the shoveling, my shoulders weren't doing anything right now. So yeah.
Here. And the nice thing with, yeah. Yeah. Um, oops, I think I'm having a internet issue. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, okay, good. Yeah, the nice thing with the mobility stuff is you don't have to really have a big gym setup to do it. You can do it when you travel, and you can do it all the time. You can dial it forward, dial it back, whatever you need to help you get through whatever it is you're doing.
Would you
And
recommend doing it before a workout, after a workout, like if you're swimming, biking, running?
yeah, absolutely. So I definitely tell all my athletes do a little bit before and a little bit after. Generally, when it comes to stuff and they're feeling pretty good, I'll tell them to do a little bit of like dynamic warm up. So doing these with maybe a little bit more speed, because when we're getting ready to do exercise, we don't want to really stretch the muscles out and make them super elongated because they lose their stretch reflex, which is what we need when we're doing sport. And then the other part of doing this with a lot of resistance is you're going to wear yourself down. So gentle mobility, see what you have for your range of motion and let you know, oh, yeah, I've got to be careful on my swim today. I shouldn't go too hard. If I'm feeling a little tight here, use it for that. And then when you're done with your swim, really go into, okay, I got to work this angle right here, start to get that connection back, get that range of motion back. So it's kind of, it can be used for both, but more low key at the beginning or before a workout, and then dive into a little bit deeper after the workout. Some water.
Makes sense. All right. Lisa, did you have a question? No? Okay. Any other questions? And as far as like reps, would you, I'm sure it's like person dependent a little bit, but obviously slower the better. I'm assuming we don't need like 100 reps of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. There was another slide that we don't need to pull up, but it was basically just talking about how you would integrate this into your weekly workouts. And generally, I recommend if you can do it daily, just like when you hear people saying do your flexibility daily, same thing with this. But picking one joint and spending like 5 to 10, no more than 10 minutes each day, pick a different joint, work on it. And that's just going to give you that consistency through the week. So if you're working each joint once a week, you're getting that work, just like you do with the bike, you're getting the different types of work to the different body parts. But it doesn't have to be a whole lot of time spent on doing it. And then as far as like the repetitions, most of my people, I only have them do 2 to 3 reps for the hip because it just requires so much work. And same thing with the spine and the shoulder. But if you're feeling like you want a little bit more work, you can absolutely do reps of 5 to 10, but you don't need to be spending 20, 30, 40 reps on these things. If you're doing that many, you're probably not doing them efficiently enough because you should feel tired even after just doing them easy with 5 to 10 reps. I think I saw a question come up in the chat.
Yep. The question was, can this help with mild arthritis issues?
Absolutely. With arthritis, it's an inflammation of the joint surfaces. And when you stop moving or when you don't move very much, all of our joints, they have a little bit of fluid inside of them, and it's good fluid. It's supposed to be there. It creates like an extra cushion. So you've got meniscus, which is a cushion, and then the joints, the fluid sits between the meniscus, and that creates this nice little pillow effect in all of our joints. With arthritis, what happens is Obviously, the meniscus gets thinner. You've got a little bit of bone-on-bone contact. There's swelling in there, and there's a less amount of fluid. And so by doing these motions, anytime you move a joint, it causes fluid to move back into the joint. So it creates a little bit more of that cushion effect back into the joint. But again, just like with anything, if you have arthritis, let's say it's in your shoulder, take it slow. So remember when I said, as you're doing the motions, you want to do it to your fullest range of motion without pain. So if you have a part in the range of motion where it's like, oh yeah, that's painful, don't push it through that pain. Back off a little bit and keep moving, because the movement itself through that joint will bring fluid into it and avoid creating more irritation in that spot that you're having an issue with. Yeah, great question. Any other questions?
Lisa just made a comment. She said, I love the emphasis on moving slowly, which can be applied to any strength training as well. And slowing it down, most people don't realize they're using the muscles in concentric and eccentric range, creating more strength.
Exactly, exactly.
I
Just
do
like,
Pilates, and it's like the emphasis is on like slow too, like with the
mhm.
reformer, and yeah, and they get into these like little, like sore in such weird areas after.
The same is applied for even yoga.
hmm
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Not everything has to be fast and forceful. Some things it's good to just slow it down and concentrate and focus. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that can like highlight even more your weaknesses sometimes, right? Like you don't realize an area is like a little twingy or weaker, and then you do something like this and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep.
And I love the emphasis on its range of motion first, then strength.
Mhm.
Coming back from major surgery, it's been that way all along on my journey from one thing to the next, whether I'm on my bike to running to strength to now swimming, learning to swim all over again.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure. Lisa, were you doing similar shoulder things in PT like we just did tonight?
Yeah, and they were very painful at first.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it's something like that, you can really see the progress, right? That's like the one cool thing.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other questions or comments? Awesome. And Jamie, if people are interested in working with you, what's the best way to go about that?
Reach out to me through the website, and I'll
Okay.
send you the link to my calendar, and we can set up a half-hour Zoom session to just talk about what your needs are and see if we'd be a good fit for each other.
Awesome. And I can pop that in our next newsletter too. I'll make a note.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun. I didn't realize how fast the time goes when I'm doing that stuff.
I know, right? It's good stuff. Well, we appreciate you. Thanks for joining us, East Coasters.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, thank you so much. I'll put this on our YouTube and I'll pop it on our Facebook page. So if people want to go watch it again or something, they can do that. And then, like I said, I'll put Jamie's website in our next newsletter.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you. Everyone have a great night.
Thank
too.
you. Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.